So, about a month or two ago, as of me writing this, there was this trend on TikTok and presumably other platforms, in which people would post these rating graphs of various long-running popular shows, like SpongeBob or The Simpsons, that listed the IMDB ratings of each episode and also colour-coded them. Now, the obvious ones that are gonna stand out on graphs like this are 1, the highest rated episode, and 2, the lowest rated episode. And today, I wanted to look at the latter, because I'm curious as to how these great shows have such bad episodes, and I want to figure out what went wrong. What is it that makes these episodes the worst of their series? So today I'm going to look at some of the worst episodes of various cartoons, going in order from the highest rated worst episode to the lowest rated worst episode, so the literal worst of the worst. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into the first episode. Bob's Burgers. Bob's Burgers is a Fox series following the titular Bob and his family who run a struggling burger restaurant. It premiered back on January 9th, 2011 and has since gone on to amass 16 seasons and 313 episodes. And what's interesting about Bob's Burgers is that despite having 313 episodes, it doesn't have like a standout bad one. Most other shows with as many episodes as this have 1 or 2 episodes that most fans point to as being the worst ones. Like Oscar Family Guy fan, what's the worst episode? And they'll immediately say something like Life of Brian, or Oscar SpongeBob fan and they might say The Splinter or A Pal for Gary. Those are famous terrible episodes we've all heard about time and time again. Yet Bob's Burgers doesn't have a single episode like this, which is incredibly impressive stuff given how many have been made. In fact, the IMDb ratings graph seems to show it as just not having a bad episode at all, which is crazy. 313 episodes and not actually a single bad one. Still though, even with this, there is obviously a lowest rated one, and that is season 13 episode 19, Crab-solutely Fabulous, which has a 6.7 out of 10, which is not at all a bad score. That's higher than Family Guy's average rating per episode for the last 3 seasons. No wonder they're jealous. So yeah, the lowest rated Bob's Burgers episode is basically just an okay one, like a fairly standard, not too noteworthy episode, rather than a dogshit abomination. Still though, we will take a look at it. So the episode starts with the family in the restaurant, when Teddy comes in to order and states he'll need to take his food to go as he's got to go work on a wrestling ring. Him stating this naturally intrigues the kids, who ask what the ring is for, to which Teddy explains it's for the Crustacean Nation Wrestling Federation, a group who dress up as various crustaceans and then fight. Obviously, the kids are even more interested now and ask to join Teddy, to which he agrees. They then go to the rec center where the event is taking place, where Louise ends up suggesting a change to the show that the creative director actually likes. Louise then basically asks how they could be in the show, to which they're told they'd need costumes. Fortunately, they already each have pickle costumes, as Tina and Louise got them for a float in season 7's Paraders of the Lost Float, and Jean got a purple one in season 10's Poops I Didn't Do It Again. They transform these into sea cucumber costumes, since I mean that'd be a better fit for the show, and Louise plans their routine. Then finally, the day of the show comes, and the kids go on stage and ultimately mess up their performance, embarrassing themselves in front of the crowd. After this, Louise begs the creative director for another chance, and claims she has some other better plan that also this time has Teddy in it as a sea sponge. The creative director ultimately agrees to give them another chance, and this time they're incredibly devoted to making it good, and they end up actually succeeding in having a good act. From here they continue practicing and working more on their act. However, it is clear that Tina and Jean have become fairly disinterested in this whole thing, and that it's only Louise who actually wants to do this. Due to their efforts, their act becomes the fan favourite, causing it to be moved to the end of the show as the closer. Louise keeps pushing for them to work harder on their act, and at this point, Tina and Jean would like to take a break from training. Also, being consistently beat up as a sponge has made Teddy's back hurt, which causes him to later get injured during a show and be unable to get up. Due to this, the show is almost ended early, until Louise calls up Bob and then Linda to the ring, who then play the Sea Sponge's sister and brother, and ultimately they are able to finish their act and save the show. Following this, Louise, realizing she may have pushed everyone too far, tells the creative director that this was their last show and they're quitting. Then the episode ends. So yeah, a pretty standard Bob's Burgers episode. As for why this specifically is the worst rated episode, it's probably because it's just sort of not very noteworthy and doesn't have any particularly standout moments. It's an episode you could watch and then never think about for the rest of your entire life, as opposed to being an episode that just completely sucks and is dreadful. Now after this episode aired, there was no backlash, unsurprisingly, and people seemed to enjoy it. I took a look at the Reddit thread surrounding this episode on the Bob's Burgers subreddit from back after it aired, and yeah, no one said it was bad or anything. So yeah, in conclusion, Bob's Burgers currently just has no bad episodes. Impressive stuff. Now let's move on to the second show on the list, South Park. South Park is a Comedy Central series created by Trey Parker and Matt Stone that initially followed 4 boys living in the town of South Park, then would later go on to also focus on other characters. The series premiered back on August 13th, 1997, and has since amassed 28 seasons with 338 episodes. Now, South Park is a very consistent show. Like, looking at the graph, the ratings haven't taken a huge hit like, say, The Simpsons or Family Guys have. They have fallen, but it's still getting good scores. Its 4th highest rated episode came from season 27, and still being good after 28 seasons is impressive stuff. However, it is also like our first series on the list that has some episodes fans consider as bad. One that instantly comes to mind is season 4's Pip, which was an episode focusing on the character Pip, a little British boy in the boys class. And a lot of people don't like this one. However, it, interestingly, has a 6.6 out of 10, which doesn't even put it in the bottom 3 episodes. Instead, the worst rated episode of the show has a 6.1 out of 10, which means we've still not actually reached bad territory yet, and well, there's actually 2 episodes with a 6.1, so I guess there's 2 joint worst episodes. Interestingly, these seem to be the worst rated episodes for the same reasons as each other. These episodes being Season 2's premiere, Terrence and Phillip in Not Without My Anus, and Season 10 Episode 5, A Million Little Fibers. So what is the reason for the hatred then? Well, let's start with Terrence and Phillip in Not Without My Anus because I feel that has the most interesting backstory. So South Park's first season came to a close on February 25th, 1998 with the episode Cartman's Mom is a Dirty Slut, which ended on a cliffhanger where Cartman's dad was about to be revealed, and they said it would be revealed on the next episode that would release in 4 weeks. Now, the date of the next episode's release happened to fall on April 1st, 1998, aka April Fool's Day, and you can probably see where this is going. Matt and Trey took this opportunity to troll their viewers a little. Instead of an episode that revealed Cartman's father airing, they instead released the episode Terrence and Phillip in Not Without My Anus, which was a full-length episode of the in-universe TV show Terrence and Phillip. And after this, the next episode, the one that was actually going to reveal Cartman's father, wouldn't be aired for another 3 weeks. After the airing of this April Fool's episode, many fans were pissed, to the point some even complained to Comedy Central directly, with them receiving angry phone calls, one of which was even reenacted for a commercial.
Who the do you think you guys are with Comedy Central and that South Park? I mean, people have been waiting 4 weeks to see who the Cartman's father is, and all you guys can show is Terrence and Phillip. You guys. You guys suck. You.
And the fact people had to wait longer for the big reveal of Cartman's father is actually only one of the reasons for fans' dislike towards the episode, as another big reason for it having such a low score is due to the fact, well, it isn't a South Park episode. As I said, this is a full-length Terrence and Phillip episode. People were going to watch South Park to see the boys in their wacky town, not Terrence and Phillip, and this reason is the reason I was referring to earlier when I said both these episodes were hated for the same reason, as the other lowest rated one, A Million Little Fibers, also doesn't focus on any of the main characters. Instead, this one focuses entirely on the character Towelie. Now, backstory as to why Towelie exists: he made his debut in the season 5 episode Towelie, in which he was basically created to be the worst character possible. Like, that was his whole point of existing. His first episode has him just show up and the boys are kind of just confused as he keeps telling them, "Don't forget to bring a towel," which is like his catchphrase. The episode also features a fake commercial for fake Towelie merch. So the obvious joke here is that they're pretending to have shoehorned in this dog shit character solely for the purpose of selling merchandise. I mean, the episode literally ends like this.
Don't forget to bring a towel. You're the worst character ever, Tally. I know.
Now that's all well and good, but a problem arose after this episode aired when somehow, despite him only existing to suck, Towelie actually became a popular character. He became the very thing he sought to destroy. From here, Towelie would then appear more throughout the series, though never in his own episode, until the release of A Million Little Fibers on April 19th, 2006, which, as I've already mentioned, follows him as the main character. So basically, this character that was created to be terrible is now in a leading role. I mean, the bad score, I guess, makes sense for not only this reason, but also for the same reason as the last episode of people were going to South Park to see the boys and their wacky adventures, yet we're instead watching Towelie and his wacky adventure, which is gonna harm the rating. Still though, these episodes aren't bad, just kind of mid. I mean, I like the Terrence and Phillip one, so Although I mean, when I watched it, I didn't have to wait another 3 weeks to get the conclusion of who Cartman's dad is. I found out directly after watching this, which is probably why I didn't hate it as much. Anyway, that concludes our 6 and above episodes, meaning from here we're actually getting into some bad stuff now. The Amazing World of Gumball. The Amazing World of Gumball is, interestingly, a show I don't think I've ever talked about on the channel before. It's a Cartoon Network show that originally premiered back on May 3rd, 2011, and then ran for 6 seasons, having 240 total episodes, with the finale airing June 24th, 2019. The series was then revived in 2025 in the form of the series The Wonderfully Weird World of Gumball, which is basically just the exact same thing as the original series, and this was even originally referred to as a 7th season rather than a whole new show. Currently, if we combine both shows, Gumball has 280 episodes, which is a lot, and surprisingly, despite this fact, the show hasn't seen any kind of dip in overall quality throughout its run, with each season's average episode rating staying fairly consistent. However, Gumball's lowest rated episode has a 5.4 out of 10, which is incredibly low for this series. I mean, second place is 5.9, and then above that it's 6.7, meaning only 2 episodes managed to get below a 6.7, which is crazy. So what is this truly terrible episode that is so much worse than every other episode in the series that it has like a significantly lower score than anything else? Well, it's season 4 episode 22, The Girlfriend. The episode starts with Jamie entering the cafeteria. This is Jamie. She's like the bully type character, and we initially see her being mean to everyone until she steals food from Carmen, which causes Alan to share his soup with Carmen. This kind gesture confuses Jamie, causing Alan to be like, well, maybe you'd feel better if you too had someone to share with. This leads Jamie to come to the conclusion she needs a boyfriend, and unfortunately for Darwin, when she realizes this, he is sat right next to her, leading to her just making him her boyfriend. Later, at home, Gumball freaks out about this news. However, Darwin seems pretty unbothered about the whole thing. The next scene then takes place at school, with Jamie coming up to Darwin, threatening him not to ignore her, giving him a gift to give her, then getting angry about it, and eventually leaving, all whilst Darwin stayed silent. So yeah, this is a fairly toxic relationship, to say the least. After this incident, Darwin explains to Gumball that Jamie clearly doesn't understand love, and so the best thing for him to do is to wait quietly for her to figure it out. We then see Darwin and Jamie sitting on Gumball, who is being forced to act as a bench, outside, when Sarah walks by and simply says, "Hey guys!" causing Jamie to instantly explode in anger and effectively jump to an insane conclusion and accuse Darwin cheating. She then attacks Sarah. The following scene takes place in the gymnasium and sees Richard introduce himself to Jamie. I like his reaction to finding out the news that Darwin has a girlfriend. I thought that was funny.
Darwin! Woo-hoo!
After Richard simply attempts to introduce himself, Jamie jumps to the conclusion he is trying to split the two up and that he doesn't approve of the relationship, causing her to shove whatever this net type thing is into his head and leading to him leaving looking like this. Even after all this, Darwin still refuses to even talk to Jamie and remains silent, despite Gumball wanting him to just put an end to it. Then in class, Jamie becomes jealous over the amount of time Gumball and Darwin spend together and states she is sick of having to share her boyfriend. Her solution to this issue is to simply make Gumball her boyfriend also, much to his dismay. Gumball, unlike Darwin, does not just stay silent and instead attempts to flee, with him running all around the school and being chased by Jamie. After this whole chase, Gumball is eventually cornered in the library, where, when all hope seems lost, Jamie finally realizes that this isn't love, and that you can't force love, but rather you have to earn it. And then Darwin walks in and basically says this exact same thing to her, which is the first time he's spoken to her this whole time, and she interprets this as him insulting her intelligence, leading her to punch him. The final scene of this episode then sees Darwin in the infirmary. So why was this given the position of the worst episode of the series? Well, some of you were probably already able to figure it out, but for those who didn't, basically people weren't a fan of the way this episode showed Jamie and Darwin's relationship, with her basically being abusive towards him and him staying silent and waiting it out, which was portrayed in a comedic way in the episode, because you know it's Gumball, not drama. I mean, there were multiple multiple scenes in the episode of Jamie threatening Darwin and yelling at him, and the most common complaint I see regarding this episode is that if the genders were reversed, it wouldn't have been shown as funny at all. Like if a female is abusive towards a male, it's hilarious, but flip the genders and it's not. Many people also interpreted this episode's message as being, if you're in an abusive relationship, stay in and say nothing. That's a literal quote from a review of the episode, and like, really? First off, I don't think the episode was really trying to teach some moral. I think it was just like trying to make a funny episode. But even if you want to take away some message from it, surely that wouldn't be it. Like, Darwin is silent the whole episode and it consistently makes things worse. It's showing that that's clearly not a good thing to do. And furthermore, Jamie literally has an epiphany on what love is at the end of the episode. So like, they spell out what love really is directly to the viewer. If you do want to take away some kind of message, surely you take away this. The moment the entire episode was building up to, rather than like the build-up that essentially showed why it is bad to say nothing. But anyway, what did I think? Well, I didn't think it was the worst episode ever. It's not like my favourite, but I didn't dislike it. I enjoyed it just a little below the average enjoyment level for most Gumball episodes. Basically, I thought it was good, but not the show's best. Would I say it's the worst? No, this is the worst. That's a little joke there. But in all seriousness, the show isn't telling viewers to stay in an abusive relationship, nor is it trying to teach some kind of deep message. It's just trying to be funny, and really you should just view it like that and enjoy it for what it is rather than reading too deeply into it. Now, opinions on this episode are still like mixed. Some basically think, well what I just said, and others think, well, the opinions I mentioned earlier. So the response was split really. But hey, I mean, because Gumball is such a consistently great show, this could be the worst episode because I actually just can't think of any bad ones. Anyway, moving on now, we're going into the below 5-star episodes, so the truly dogshit ones now. Rick and Morty. Rick and Morty is probably Adult Swim's most popular original series. It originally premiered back on December 2nd, 2013 and exploded in popularity, with its popularity peaking in 2017 with the release of its third season. And I mean, it makes sense. Whilst the reputation of the series now isn't great, which I'll get into, those first 3/4 seasons were incredible. I mean, look at these numbers. The average rating for episodes from these seasons is 8.4 to 8.7, which is great. However, in more recent times, both the quality of the show and the reputation it has have really dwindled. Season 5 was kind of the beginning of the series' fall off, and I'll be honest, Season 5 is the last season I watched. I watched this whilst it was premiering, and then when Season 6 came out, I saw it was out and was like, maybe I'll watch that later, and then later never came. I think maybe the whole Season 5 episode where Morty fucks a horse fucking machine that eventually leads to him and Summer, his sister, having a giant space incest baby kind of put me off the show for, well, forever, considering I literally never came back since that season. And now, since I've been gone, things have gotten pretty bad for numerous reasons. Too much to really go into, like I could make a whole video on the Rick and Morty fall off. There's the reputation the fanbase has for lack of better phrasing, being Reddit-like and kind of cringe, which is kind of the best way I can describe it. And that sucks for everyone else who likes the show, because the annoying, to be fair, you have to have a very high IQ to understand Rick and Morty section of the fanbase is probably the vocal minority. Yet because they are so vocal, the reputation the whole community now has is just wank. And it's not just this section of the fanbase that ruined the show, because there's plenty of good shows with horrible fanbases, but the show itself went down in quality post season 4. Just look at the graph, man. This happened for a multitude of reasons. I mean, there was the whole Justin Roiland thing, the weird amount of incest stuff, and more. Anyway, this brings me on to the point of this entry, the worst rated episode, and that is Season 7, Episode 8, Rise of the Numbericons, the movie, which has an insanely low 4.4 out of 10. That's nuts. Like, if you had told 10-year-old me who shouldn't have been watching Rick and Morty, but who cares, that there'd be an episode with a 4.4 out of 10, I wouldn't believe you, because that idea would just have seemed impossible during the series' peak of popularity. Like, every episode was getting high 7s to high 9s. Anything below a 7 would have been crazy, and now we're at the stage of having an episode with a 4.4. So what went so wrong? Why is this episode so hated? Well, that's actually a pretty easy question to answer. So this episode of Rick and Morty focuses on Ice-T, who is now Water-T and then later Magma-T, who had first appeared back in Season 2's Get Swifty, in which he teams up with Rick and Morty to create a song to please the Cromulons, where it is then revealed Ice-T is actually an alien, and the episode features a post-credit scene in which we see him return to his home planet, which then is attacked attacked by the Numbericons, and so it's up to Ice-T to put a stop to them, with the post-credit scene ending on a cliffhanger and this screen stating that this is supposedly a teaser for the upcoming Water Tea and the Rise of the Numbericons, which is apparently coming this summer. So this is obviously a joke, like an action movie parody for a thing that will never release. However, for whatever reason, someone on the writing staff decided, oh, this little gag from a post-credit scene of an episode released 8 years ago, yeah, let's take that and make a full episode out of it. That's a great idea. So yeah, this episode starts with that exact same scene from the original season 2 episode, and like the whole point of the original joke was, oh, this is stupid. Imagine if this actually existed, that would be stupid. That's why it's funny. It's a stupid concept, and that joke worked because it was just a post-credit scene, so it didn't like overstay its welcome. Just a short and sweet little humorous gag. But the problem now is it's a full episode. The joke is absolutely overstaying its welcome. It's being dragged from the point where the original scene ends and the episode starts. And the reason it's hated is not only this, but also it's kind of similar to the South Park one in that, well, people would be coming to Rick and Morty to see Rick and Morty, or any of the other major characters. But instead, they're now being made to watch Ice-T team up with Morty's math teacher. Oh good. Like, the only major character who is in this episode is Morty. Rick's not even here at all, and he's half the show's title. And what's crazy is, I usually like stupid stuff, as long as it's actually funny. Like, the entirety of something like Beavis and Butthead is just stupid. That's their whole shtick, right? They're stupid. But it's actually funny, so all the stupidity works great, and is actually where most of the comedy comes from. I just didn't care for this because it wasn't funny and stupid, it was just stupid. So yeah, in conclusion, basically the episode is dragging a once 30-second gag and attempting to make a 22-minute episode out of it, where the whole joke is just, isn't this a stupid concept? And this is the show that requires a high IQ to understand. The response to this episode after it aired was negative, with the Rick and Morty subreddit saying things like, didn't laugh once, totally cheesy, not witty, and uninteresting episode, that was fucking awful man, what were they thinking, worst episode ever, and we have a new contender for the worst episode. Move over, space sperm. Anyway, moving on now to our next bad episode. Family Guy. Family Guy is a series that, in terms of quality, has seen very high highs and very low lows. It has some incredible episodes, and also some of the worst episodes of television. Created by Seth MacFarlane, it originally premiered on Fox back on January 31st, 1999, and initially ran for only 3 seasons before it was cancelled. Yet, due to its high number of DVD sales and popularity in reruns on Adult Swim, Fox decided to bring it back for a 4th season, where it would then continue to be renewed for many more future seasons, which brings us up to now, where the series has 24 seasons and 461 episodes. Now, in more recent times, Family Guy's public reputation has really fallen off. I mean, just look at the ratings graph. The series hasn't had an episode in the green since season 16. We're at season 24 now, and it's mostly orange. And the average rating per episode of each season post 16 ranges from 6.1 to 6.7, which is just kind of mid, really. The most common complaints surrounding modern Family Guy are 1. The overuse of cutaway gags that are seemingly simply only there to pad out the runtime and actually take away from the episode, and some of these cutaways are really drag. Like, I recall watching an episode of Family Guy in a college class with my friend, and they had a gag in which they played the entirety of the intro to the 1970s show The Hudson Brothers Razzle Dazzle Show, which genuinely lasted about 3 minutes. And this caused my friend to exclaim something along the lines of, you know, I can see why people complain about modern Family Guy. And there are tons of examples of long, boring cutaway gags that really drag. Now, I think this is an interesting complaint due to the fact that the last episode in the series to receive a green rating was season 16's Switch the Flip. And like, I remember when I watched this episode, I was getting a haircut whilst watching it. That's not important to my point, but what I'm now realizing is that I can seemingly recall where I was whenever I watched a Family Guy episode. But yeah, I remember after watching this thinking, wow, that was really good. And I thought it was a lot better than other modern episodes, which clearly some people agreed. I especially loved the second half of it, in which they all have to try switch all their bodies back. It was honestly great and the pacing was phenomenal. And then I realized something. This episode's ending has no cutaway gags. The pacing is so great because there was no unnecessary long interruption to pad runtime. Complaint people have number 2. The characters are a lot more mean-spirited now than earlier seasons. I don't know how to expand on that complaint, it kind of speaks for itself. 3. Flanderization. Flanderization is a term used for when an often minor but still somewhat notable trait of a character is continually used and exaggerated exaggerated by writers more and more to the point where it becomes their entire personality and completely strays the character away from what it once was. The term is named after Ned Flanders from The Simpsons, as he's a very big example of this. In early Simpsons, Ned was basically just this perfect guy with a perfect family who lived next to The Simpsons, and he was annoying to Homer because of how perfect he was in comparison to The Simpsons family. Homer essentially hated Ned out of jealousy for how great he was, and how he was basically unintentionally showing him up constantly. Ned was also a Christian, but this was barely even mentioned in early seasons and wasn't like his whole shtick. Instead, more of just a thing he was. You know, like most actual Christians in the real world, where they're just people who also happen to be Christian. However, as the series went on longer and longer, the trait of Ned being a Christian was one the writers focused on more and more, until eventually it consumed his whole character. And instead of him being this whole list of different things, he became just the Christian. One of the reasons something like this can happen is that when the writers for a series change, the new writers, who aren't as familiar with the characters as the old ones since, you know, they've worked with them for so long, will just go off of what they've seen on the series before on a surface level and try to mimic that. Then when those writers are replaced by new writers, the new writers just copy the old writers, and this cycle just keeps going on and on. It's basically like a huge game of Chinese whispers and leads to the characters becoming completely different from what they once were. This can be seen in Family Guy with characters like Joe, who is now just loser wheelchair guy, or Peter, who is stupid. LS Mark has some great videos where he discusses individual Family Guy characters, which I recommend watching if you're interested in specifically this. Anyway, what do I think about modern Family Guy? I like it. Like, yes, I can admit it's not as good as the show's golden era, but I do enjoy watching it. It's not thought-provoking or deep or whatever, and that's why I like it. Like, I can just watch it. It's easily consumable. The best thing I can compare it to is something like McDonald's. Just easy to consume with little thought, focus, or effort required. I remember once I was really ill and couldn't be bothered to, like, think at all or do anything, so I just sat there and watched Family Guy episodes. And then at one point, I also just put it in Spanish for 10 minutes for some reason, even though I can't speak Spanish. I just felt like it. And what's crazy about that is I could still tell what was happening in the episode despite it being in Spanish. So that shows how easily consumable it is. But yeah, I hope they keep pumping out endless Family Guy episodes so I can mindlessly consume them all. Yes, all of that was the build up to finally covering the series' worst episode. And this is season 17, episode 16, You Can't Handle the Booth, which has a 4.3 out of 10. This episode sees the Griffins recording a DVD commentary for an episode of Family Guy. An interesting concept, sure, but I mean, it doesn't really work well as an episode. It'd probably be better as like a DVD bonus feature. And by that I mean it is better as a DVD bonus feature because they did this exact thing for the DVD Family Guy The Freakin' Sweet collection, where they had Brian and Stewie commentate the episode Road to Rhode Island, which was a cool bonus. Also, this is technically just Seth MacFarlane talking to himself for 22 minutes. Okay, so I'm not going to explain the whole plot of this one. All you need to know is what I already said. It's just a family doing a DVD commentary. Also, all the visuals are obviously unrelated since the episode's plot takes place in the commentary rather than the episode they're commentating over. I think this episode can be best described as one really long gag. Like, I think the family doing a commentary would have worked well for one cutaway gag, but dragging it for 22 minutes is just dreadful. Like, remember how I said some cutaways just drag? Like, some cutaway gags you just want to end? Imagine that for 22 minutes straight. Also, the whole commentary thing is kind of annoying because the on-screen visuals, like I said, have nothing to do with the episode's premise. That all takes place on the audio, so it's just kind of distracting to look at, honestly, and creates an unpleasant viewing experience. On the bright side though, I like this part.
No need, Peter. Hi, sorry to interrupt. Seth MacFarlane.
Holy crap, it's the mouse from Sing! I'd recognize your voice anywhere.
Okay, settle down.
That was funny. Moving on now from one Seth MacFarlane show to another. American Dad. American Dad is another animated series created by Seth MacFarlane. The series first premiered on February 6, 2005, and has since gone on to amass 22 seasons with 397 episodes. Now personally, I feel American Dad never hit the highs of Family Guy's peak, but at the same time, never hit the lows of that series. Like, I think peak Family Guy was better than peak American Dad, but I think current American Dad is better than current Family Guy. Interestingly, American Dad doesn't actually use cutaway gags like Family Guy does, which probably helps its modern quality. So, what is the worst American Dad episode? Well, interestingly, it's season 10, episode 14, American Fung. Should probably also note that the way American Dad episodes are numbered varies from place to place, and I'm not going to get into why in this video, but this is what IMDB says, so I'm just going to go off of that for this. With an incredibly low 4 out of 10, which is actually lower than Family Guy's worst episode. Although interestingly, in the case of American Dad, that actually only has 2 episodes that got below a 6, with second place having a 5.9, which is 1.9 above this episode, unlike Family Guy which has many episodes below a 6. So, what could have possibly gone so wrong to result in this episode's score being drastically lower than all other other episodes? Well, let's take a look. So this episode, instead of opening with the intro like most others, instead opens with this guy talking to the audience. This is Fung, a Chinese billionaire who explains that he has purchased and is now the new owner of American Dad. He explains this and also assures the audience that despite the change of ownership, the series will stay exactly the same. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. From here, it starts off as a fairly standard episode. The intro plays after this opening, and then we cut to Stan driving home, where we learn, oh no, he's forgotten his anniversary. You know, a classic episode setup we've seen in many shows in the past time and time again, including this very show actually. Stan's solution to this is to have Francine committed to a psychiatric hospital, where she'll have to then stay for 3 days before she gets released because obviously she's fine. This will buy Stan some time to plan for their anniversary. However, he then goes and wastes all this time doing fun stuff at the mall, and after his 3 days is up, he receives a call about Francine stating she is alright and ready to be picked up. This reminds Stan about the anniversary. Again, after this scene, the B-plot kicks off when we see Haley and Steve sitting in the living room before a mountain of clothes and Roger fall down the stairs. Roger has too many clothes, and so they have to figure out what to do with them all. And it's during this scene we get our first thing that's off about the episode. Up until now, it's been normal, and this is the first of many more to come. So the whole scene is entirely normal until Steve looks at a newspaper in the pile and exclaims,
Whoa, my God! Listen to this. It says here that billionaire Fung has increased his already vast fortune.
Then everyone nods and we get a shot zoomed in on the front of the paper. So the joke here is that Fung, as the new owner, made the characters act out of character solely to praise him in front of their viewers, which we'll see more of later. Meanwhile, when Stan goes to pick up Francine, he brings a bucket of fried chicken as a gift. However, Francine figured out Stan was the one who got her sent to a mental institution, and she is so pissed that she freaks out and screams at him. This crash out causes the staff to take her back, believing she actually is insane now. This is a problem, obviously. Stan returns at a later date to visit Francine, which is when a doctor explains that they've discovered he appears to be her trigger. The doctor then pulls up a bottle of Fung spring water and drinks it with the label pointing directly at the camera and the shot holding on him as he drinks it. Another humorous change done by Fung, this time to promote one of his products. From here, the episode doesn't acknowledge this and goes straight back to normal, with the doctor explaining that Stan can't visit Francine because of this fact, which upsets him. Meanwhile, back at home, Steve, Haley and Roger are sorting through Roger's clothes when someone knocks at the door. Oh wow, it's Chinese billionaire Fung. Now he's in the show, and everyone's ecstatic about this, with them all, for lack of better phrasing, metaphorically sucking him off constantly. After this, it's back to Stan, who has now gotten himself into the institution by pretending to be nuts, so that he can break Francine out. Also, at one point during the scene, this nurse here does an ad read for Fung cologne. Stan's attempt to free her ultimately is unsuccessful, however, and the two are both tranquilized. Whilst this is happening, back at home, Fung returns and invites the three on an adventure with him, which of course, they are thrilled about. However, because they still have all the clothes to sort, they can't. Fortunately, the genius Fung comes up with a quick solution to just use a closet that is in the living room as more clothes storage, which everyone then praises him for, and then they leave to go on his adventure. We then see that Stan and Francine have been captured and placed in an operating room, where it is then revealed they're going to be lobotomized, which they're not too thrilled about. We then see Stan have a drill stuck in his head, thus lobotomizing him. From here it cuts back to the B-plot, where we see the gang on Fung adventure, which consists of them walking down the street a bit and then Fung finds some treasure and everyone praises him. At this point the episode truly goes off the rails, with Fung stating that's it, that's the show. And then to explain what happened to Stan and Francine, he states they escaped and were A-OK, which we are not shown. Then they apparently went on vacation at Fung Resort in Bali. He then goes on to essentially do an ad for the fictional resort over live action footage of some actual resort. If you're curious, it's the Maunalani Resort in Hawaii. He then advertises his clothing line, chocolates and stemware. After this, Fung speaks to the audience again like at the start, and explains he has now flipped the series for profit and has sold it off to someone else, this being Lee Kwan, who then moves the show to China and renames it to American Chinese Dad. We're then shown a look at this new version of the show, which sees the family, now speaking entirely Chinese, living in poverty and working on a farm. Then Mickey Mouse appears and everyone dances to Chinese techno music. The end. So yeah, a truly bizarre episode, but I can see why it's hated. What's bizarre is that I don't even hate this idea. Like in concept, the idea of having a Chinese billionaire fuck with the series during an episode sounds funny, but I think the execution here isn't great. Because they're doing this, but they're also doing the Stan and Francine plot, and to a lesser extent the Roger, Steve and Haley plot at the same time. And the problem here is since too much focus is put on these plots rather than the actual Chinese billionaire at the start. Like, it starts off fairly normal to the point where you become invested in this plot, only for the Chinese billionaire to then take over and ruin it. Like, there was all this setup for the part where we see Stan and Francine about to get lobotomized, only for the episode to effectively edge us instead of giving us a satisfying conclusion, solely for the purpose of having the joke of this Chinese billionaire forcefully shoving himself and the things he owns into the episode. Isn't that funny? Like, all the build-up in the episode is solely there to get to this joke, and this joke isn't funny enough to be worth effectively ruining the episode. I would have preferred to have seen a normal episode with this premise, because I feel an actual conclusion would be more satisfying than this joke is humorous. But also, it's kind of genius, I guess. Like, the whole point of the episode is that this Chinese billionaire is ruining the show. Therefore, it's bad on purpose. So they were actively trying to make it shit, and I mean, they were very successful in that. It's by far the lowest rated episode. So yeah, in conclusion, I don't think this is really 4 out of 10 bad, but it probably is the worst of the series. However, it is doing that purposely. Also, I like this line.
Gotta find the perfect anniversary gift for Francine. Oh, I'm at the top.
The Simpsons. Okay, I'm not even gonna bother doing an introduction to The Simpsons. It's the fucking Simpsons, you know what it is. And The Simpsons was once like the greatest thing on television, but has since been milked so much its quality has really dropped. Just look at the graph, man. It was like mostly green and has since gone to mostly orange. The Simpsons has currently amassed 37 seasons and 805 episodes. So with that, it's no wonder it suffered from seasonal rot. Like, there's only so good a show can remain after 800 episodes. I mean, The Simpsons is literally the reason the term Flanderization exists. Like, as mentioned prior, the term comes from Ned Flanders, but he isn't the only character in the show to suffer from this, as I think most characters have actually suffered from this to some extent. But anyway, what is the worst Simpsons episode? Because I mean, with there being this many episodes, there's already a lot of bad ones, which means whichever is the worst of all of them has to be like really bad. Well, many of you probably already know what it is, but for those unaware, it is season 23, episode 22, Lisa Goes Gaga. So this episode sees Lady Gaga come to Springfield. Oh boy. Okay, so first, Lisa wins the award for most unpopular student, which greatly upsets her as she realizes no one likes her. Her initial solution to this was to anonymously post on a forum dedicated to discussing her and talk about how great she is, which somehow works and causes everyone to think she's actually pretty cool. I don't know why that would work. You'd think at least one person would connect the dots and go, it's a little suspicious how Lisa sobbed yesterday after finding out everyone hates her. And then weirdly that same day this anonymous user pops up and starts talking about how great she is. Weird. It's then quickly revealed Lisa was this user as she drops her notebook containing written out posts done by this user, including, at that point, not yet posted ones. This causes people to make fun of her more. Oh no, whatever will she do? Well, luckily, Lady Gaga senses Lisa is upset and instantly heads to Springfield to help her. When Lady Gaga's train arrives in Springfield, residents gather around excitedly and joyfully to see Lady Gaga, who they all love oh so much. She then pops out and sings a little song about how everyone is so amazing and beautiful. After that, she notices Lisa in the crowd, who is not happy, and so she accompanies her to her house to try and make her happy, because she wants everyone to be oh so happy. At first this doesn't work, and Lady Gaga then keeps trying to make Lisa happy until eventually Lisa crashes out at her, causing Lady Gaga to leave crying. Lisa is very depressed at this point, until randomly she just has a change of heart. Like, it really does come out of nowhere. 1 minute she's miserable, then she gasps, and boom, she's all cheery again. Lady Gaga at this point is about to leave Springfield, and she's sad, but Lisa, realizing Lady Gaga's great and actually stopped her being miserable, runs after her train to explain to her that her crashing out at her actually helped her become happy again, because she got to let all her anger out at Gaga. Then Lisa and Lady Gaga sing a song about how great Lisa is, and the episode ends. Okay, so I'm not even going to sugarcoat this or anything, but this is genuinely complete dog shit. By far the worst of the whole show, probably the worst on the entire list actually. A 4 is too high for this. This has the same rating as the American Dad episode, and by God, that one is miles better than this. Everyone is behaving out of character solely so that Lady Gaga can be shown to be loved and adored by all the Simpsons characters. Weirdly, it's very comparable to the American Dad episode, in that Lady Gaga in this episode feels the same as Fung did in that episode, except there it was kind of funny because it was obviously a joke. Like, all the characters loved Fung but it was obviously a joke. Here, it's the same thing, but instead with Lady Gaga, and it's not a joke this time, because Fung was a fictional guy. Lady Gaga is a real person who guest stars as herself in the episode, and the only point of the episode is seemingly just to show how great she is. Like, Lisa is sad, so it's up to Lady Gaga to make her happy, which she's so desperate to do because she wants everyone to be happy, and she successfully does make Lisa happy eventually, and Lisa is so grateful she runs up to Lady Gaga to thank her, and they all sing a song, which like is the same as how Fung solved Roger, Haley and Steve's problem and then they all praised him, except there's not even a funny aspect to it because it is entirely unironic here. Lisa in this episode is just so out of character, and the only reason she's seemingly written this way is so Lady Gaga can swoop in and save the day. I don't like to be negative, which in hindsight it was probably a bad idea to do this video then, but still. Like every other episode, I have said at least one positive thing, but here, there's genuinely nothing. I'm actually pissed at how bad this is. I'm not even in the comically angry online reviewer way. I just hate this. Genuinely. It's shit. It's so shit. I don't even have a single line I enjoyed like I did for American Dad and Family Guy. This is terrible. The whole thing is just 22 minutes of the show telling the audience how great Lady Gaga is. I don't have anything against Lady Gaga or anything. She's made some great songs, and she does, I mean, seem great in real life and stuff. Also, she's in Fortnite. Actually, so are the Simpsons too. But Christ, I don't want to hear about how great she is for 22 minutes straight. I just want to watch the Simpsons. So that was bad. But don't worry, because apparently, somehow, there are 2 episodes worse than this. How could that possibly be? Well, let's find out, I guess. SpongeBob SquarePants. SpongeBob SquarePants is like one of the most popular cartoons ever. After its premiere in 1999, it quickly blew up in popularity, becoming Nickelodeon's biggest show of all time. And you could even make the argument of it being the biggest kids show of all time, especially with it being dubbed into over 70 languages. It's probably not like the biggest kids franchise of all time, but in terms of a singular kids series, it very well could be. And SpongeBob, since its premiere, has received 16 seasons with 331 episodes. And even more when you're watching this, because as of writing, a new episode comes out tomorrow, so... And what's crazy is that SpongeBob episodes are 22 minutes long, with most 22-minute episodes actually containing 2 11-minute segments, so basically 2 episodes, which means the series doesn't have 331 episodes, but instead 642. Wow. And I think SpongeBob, out of all the series on this list, has truly seen the highest highs and the lowest lows. There are countless SpongeBob episodes that may very well be the greatest thing humanity has ever made. Like, I think we should shoot pizza delivery into space, because if aliens saw we made that they'd totally come visit us. But it's also seen some truly dreadful episodes, like Stuck in the Ringer or The Splinter, which are just gross and unfunny to watch. I mean, even as a kid, when I watched these, I didn't enjoy it. And for some reason, I remember these episodes so distinctly. Like, Nick must have loved airing them for some reason. That or the grossness really just stuck with me because of how bad it is. The ratings of SpongeBob episodes range from the highest, which is 9.8, down to the lowest at 3.2. That's a range of 6.6, the highest range on the whole list. I mean, look at this graph. It's nuts. So, what is this infamous episode that got such a low rating? Well, a lot of you already probably know since it's been talked about to death time and time again, but it is, of course, Season 7, Episode 5B, A Pal for Gary. Oh yeah, I should probably clarify, as mentioned prior, each SpongeBob episode is actually 2 episodes, which is the way it's listed on IMDB, which technically actually makes the worst rated episode both A Pal for Gary and Keep Bikini Bottom Beautiful, but I'm only covering A Pal for Gary because discussion online as well as the written reviews reveal that all the negativity is 100% directed towards this episode rather than Keep Bikini Bottom Beautiful. So, what makes this so bad? Well, let's find out. This episode sees SpongeBob feel bad for leaving Gary home alone all day whilst he goes to work. And luckily for him, on his way home, he passes this cart where an old lady is selling these fluffy looking fellas. If SpongeBob gets another pet, Gary won't be alone all day. So he gets the idea to get a pal for Gary. However, when SpongeBob goes to buy one, the lady warns him that these pets are dangerous, especially around other pets, though SpongeBob doesn't listen and takes one home anyway. When he returns home, SpongeBob introduces Gary to the new pet, which he names Puffy Fluffy. From here, SpongeBob continuously leaves the 2 of them alone, and whenever he does, Puffy Fluffy turns evil and tries to attack Gary. Gary obviously attempts to flee, and whenever he does this, SpongeBob gets mad at him and eventually punishes him for this by putting him to bed early. During the night, Puffy Fluffy, who now looks like this, attacks Gary for hours, with Gary obviously fleeing and fighting back and stuff. And this leads to the house getting trashed in the process. After this whole night of Gary essentially being tortured, SpongeBob finally wakes up and sees the mess. He instantly blames Gary for this, somehow never stopping to think, I wonder if this is because of my pet I've had for years who's never done anything like this, or if it's the new pet I got yesterday from a dodgy van. SpongeBob goes to find Gary to yell at him, and when he gets to Gary, he's like this, clearly being eaten by Puffy Fluffy. And at this point, you're expecting SpongeBob to freak out and go, Gary, and then save him, right? Like, whilst watching this, what I was thinking is that SpongeBob being oblivious to Gary's torment from Puffy Fluffy is actually all a huge setup to the eventual scene of him going, "Oh Gary, I'm so sorry, I had no idea." But no, instead, SpongeBob yells at Gary to put Puffy Fluffy down. In this situation, mind you. SpongeBob's been acting out of character this whole episode. Not only has he been a jerk the whole time, but also just a complete fucking idiot. And not even in a humorous way, just in an annoying way. Like, I desperately want him to stop acting like this and apologise to poor Gary. But no. From here, Puffy Fluffy attacks SpongeBob, who, whilst being eaten, is still mad at Gary for some reason. And then Gary saves him from Puffy Fluffy. And it's at this point you'd think, oh finally, he's gonna snap out of it. But no! Instead, Puffy Fluffy then runs away, and SpongeBob tries to go after him, but he ultimately just leaves, causing SpongeBob to get mad at Gary. Still, the episode then ends with SpongeBob instead deciding to take Gary to the Krusty Krab, so he won't be alone. And that's it. There was no satisfying conclusion really. SpongeBob was just a dickhead to poor Gary, who was already being tortured the whole time, and he never apologizes, nor does Gary get like rewarded or anything. Gary saved SpongeBob and underwent torment for hours for zero payoff. It's just miserable to watch, honestly. SpongeBob would not act like this. Still though, I feel 3.2 is a little harsh. 4 maybe more reasonable. I mean, that's still completely shit, but like, this is not worse than Lisa Goes Gaga. I'm sorry. I think his rating is somewhat fair. This is probably one of the worst episodes of the series. If I had to choose a personal least favorite though, it would be the Splinter. That's just hell to sit through. And with that, we are finally on to the worst episode on the list. But first, some honourable mentions. So the worst rated episode of Smiling Friends is Season 2 Episode 2, Mr. President, which has a 7.2, which I mean, isn't a bad score. Similarly, the worst episode of the Beavis and Butthead reboot has a 7.7 out of 10, which is actually a great score. And the worst episode of the original series has a 6.6, with it being the second one ever. Futurama's lowest rated episode is Season 11's The Prince and the Product, with a 4.3. The worst rated King of the Hill episode has a 6.3, with there being 2 episodes with this score. The lowest rated episode of The Cleveland Show has a 5.9. Also, just look at this graph. The lowest rated Peppa Pig episode is Season 5's Sailing Boat. So that's something, I guess. The lowest rated Velma episode got a 2.7, and the highest rated got a 4.1. And finally, the lowest rated episode of The Matumblers, the hit show streaming on Tubi, has a 9.5, which feels reasonable, I think. And with that, onto the final episode. An episode so bad it ruined the whole show forever. All other episodes on this list do not compare to this one, because I mean, at least the other shows recovered from their bad episodes. SpongeBob's newest season has an average rating of 7.2 per episode. Like, a pal for Gary didn't kill the series or anything. Unlike this episode, which made such a poor change to the status quo, it killed the whole show and essentially ruined all future episodes. And that episode was from The Fairly OddParents. Yeah, so you probably already knew that because it was listed as one of the chapters of the video, which might have killed the suspenseful build-up, but still. So The Fairly OddParents was a Nickelodeon series which followed 10-year-old Timmy Turner, whose life was miserable, and so because of that he was granted fairy godparents to grant whatever wishes he wants, as long as they don't break their rules. And that was the series' setup. It followed a 10-year-old kid who was able to have his wishes granted by his fairy godparents. Neat. And the series was at one point Nick's second biggest Nicktoon, second only to SpongeBob obviously, which led to it receiving 10 seasons with 172 episodes. But similarly to SpongeBob, most episodes are 22 minutes and contain 2 11-minute episodes, so the actual count of episodes is 294. And this series really got shit. Like, it got really bad towards the end. Just look at the graph. There are countless episodes in the red, but only one can be the worst. And to be the worst of all this, man, you gotta be really bad. And the worst episode, with a score of 3 out of 10, is Season 10's premiere, The Big Fairy Share Scare. Okay, well technically there's 2 episodes with a 3, because Season 10's Certifiable Super Sitter also has a 3, but this one feels more interesting to talk about, so this episode, first off, is interestingly double length, being 22 minutes long, and basically it sees a new girl move to Dimsdale and join Timmy's class. This girl being Chloe Carmichael. Chloe is essentially perfect and everyone loves and adores her, which annoys Timmy because he's jealous. But fortunately, Timmy still has his fairies, which Chloe doesn't, until she does, because Jorgen appears to inform Timmy that there's a fairy shortage, which means Timmy is gonna now have to share his fairy godparents. And who's this new kid he's gotta share with? Why, it's Chloe, of course. Now you may be immediately thinking, why the fuck does Chloe need fairy godparents? She's just been shown to be perfect and loved by everyone. Well, I mean, she doesn't. really. But the show's explanation for it is that she's too helpful, and sometimes when she tries to help, it makes things worse. Oh no, boo-hoo. So yeah, I mean, Chloe doesn't need fairy godparents at all, man. And also there's something important I have to mention. So this isn't just a standalone episode. Maybe if it was, it wouldn't be so bad. Like, I guess it's a fine episode idea to have Timmy have to share his fairies. The reason's still bullshit, but the show was way past caring by this point in its run anyway, so. But no, because things don't reset after this episode, and instead, Chloe becomes a recurring main character, being in every following episode. And like, she's annoying, it's the only way I can put it. I don't like Chloe, and clearly the majority of others also don't. The show has forcefully shoved a new annoying character into the main cast, and just shown her to be perfect and loved by everyone. Great. So yeah, that's basically why this one is hated, because people wanted to see Timmy Turner, that's why they came to the series. But instead, we're now being forced to see Timmy Turner and Chloe Carmichael, for the whole season, mind you. So the episode essentially made such a poor change to the series' status quo and setup that it not only ruined this episode, but also every future episode, and ultimately killed the show, with this being its last season. No wonder it got a 3, that feels warranted, honestly. And that brings us to the end of the video. Do you think these episodes deserve the spot of the worst of their series? Comment down below. Also like and subscribe if you enjoyed for more future similar videos. And also check out Our Stupid School, it's a show I made and I'm in. Also I have a cameo. Also shout out to Mozzie Firefox and Neacat, or Nyacat, I'm not sure which way you pronounce it, but it's probably one of those, who are both really freaking sweet tier members. Goodbye.